the most extensive investigation that the Special Investigator
plans to solve the problem. Again, he's got a task team for this. He will investigate that. That's not a solution. What is positive in a certain sense is that for the first time, the president admitted that the private sector must create jobs and not the government. But again, he will look into some red tape and the task team to see how that can be alleviated or anything like that. But the solution is very, very, very easy and simple. Stop black economic empowerment, stop affirmative action, and then the private sector will create jobs. And that is what the Freedom Front Plus said all the years, that is where jobs are created, not with the government. As far as crime is concerned, again, the president said that the agricultural sector is a very important sector, but again, he is willing to establish specialized units for when it comes to the breaking and the stealing of infrastructure. But why doesn't he want to establish a specialized unit as far as farm murders are concerned? Furthermore, if he is so serious about the agricultural union, which he said is a very essential sector, why then does he allow that the minimum wage is applicable on the farming community?
Thank you very much, Mr. Groenewald, for your comment. I will now be getting a comment from Mr. Mkhuleko Hlengwa. We spoke earlier. You did indicate what you would like to hear from the president. Did he speak to your wishes?
No, we've been down this road before. It was a very long State of the Nation address without any rabbit coming out of the hat. The president is announcing things that is announced before, and quite clearly that on its own is an acknowledgement of failure to implement, and it's quite a tragedy. There is an indication, as far as we are concerned, that they've run out of ideas. There is no political will or political urgency, and the president speaking, with normality, in a climate of chaos, in a climate of desperation, in a climate of uncertainty. And so all those factors combined, as far as we are concerned, are an indication of a government that has actually not got its wherewithal insofar as all these issues are concerned.
Mr. Hlengwa, thank you very much, and always a pleasure to have you talking to Parliament TV. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Hlengwa. We will now go back to the studio.
We had not finished our point actually on the fact that the president highlighted the shortage of schools within the country. Indeed. And of which he added that the 2,500 schools that are still to be built, they will take plus minus 75 years. So meaning that our country or government needs to have a long-term plan as to how these schools are going to be built in order to ensure that the children of South Africa, the young generation, gets education.
Absolutely.
So as the advocate Thuli Madonsela earlier on said, that we are building the community, we are building the people of our country. So if they are not having knowledge and if they don't have proper infrastructure, then there will be a problem. Having completed that, having done that, we are going to go back outside and just find out what reviews is Thembinkosi having.
Thank you, Valerie. I am standing with Mr. Dion de Vos, the acting president of the South African Local Government Association. Good evening, Mr. de Vos. Your reaction on the president's address, please.
From the position of SALGA, we are very positive from what the president was raising in his State of the Nation. Very important to us is the fact that the issue of water, as you know, we are a local government. And water is a critical problem faced by our communities in our areas. And the president was specific of the steps which are going to be taken in trying to assist municipalities to deliver water to our communities. We were fortunate to meet with the minister, even to also Minister Senzo, to deal with the issues of water and the things which challenge us there. So that is one of the positives, that the water is life for our communities. The other issue is he emphasized the district development model. From SALGA's position, we are very proud to be part of this, and we will give all the support when it comes to the district development model, because this is an integration at the district level, because many services are not necessarily within local government, but we are serving the communities in local government. So if we can work, the model can work perfectly. then it will mean those things can be dealt with. For example, you find areas where people have to travel kilometers to get an ID, a death certificate, or a birth certificate. Now, within the district development model, all of our departments will be there, and we will speedily deal with some of the issues in that. But the economy, if the economy grows, our people will get jobs, and they will be able to pay for their services at the municipality. What we find, municipalities are having a lot of indigent people who are unable to pay, who are dependent on the free basic services, and some of them are unable to pay. So if the economy grows, the tax base will grow, and municipalities will have revenue to be able to do the services which is required by our communities. So we are very positive. We will contribute our part in ensuring that we assist government in achieving these objectives, especially servicing our communities in our areas.
Mr. DeFoss, thank you very much. And we will now just cross back to the studio.
South Africans, one of the things that the President also touched on is the issue of the social relief distress. Most of the citizens have been depending on this because they lost jobs.
Indeed.
And they were struggling to put food on the table.
Absolutely.
I believe that it will bring some relief as well to most families, that it's been extended, Subulelo, to March 2023.
That is really a very good relief for a lot of South Africans, especially when we are considering the fact that there's so many families that go hungry on a daily basis. All of those families, many of them who have lost jobs, who won't have access to formal employment. So obviously that will be some kind of relief. But I think we can pause there for now and go back to Thembi Nkosi to get more reactions on the President's State of the Nation address. Over to you.
Thank you, Sibulele. I am now stand with the leader of the African Christian Democratic Party, Reverend Shwe. Reverend, thank you very much for talking to us. We spoke earlier and you raised issues that you would like to hear from the President. Now I'm asking for your reaction from the address, please.
Sometimes we call what we had tonight a mixed bag, meaning that there were positives and negatives. Maybe some positives, let me start with the positives, okay? Maybe one positive, go to the negative, I might come back to another positive. All right, to hear him say they are going to establish special courts to deal with those that were implicated in the state capture, I think that's a positive, because these people will be brought to book much earlier than it would have been without the special courts. So the courts that are going to focus on them will send a clear message to all South Africans that if you are involved in corruption, you will not be tolerated. So this was a positive, and I really appreciate this. The second positive is to hear that the national state of disaster is going to be brought to an end. You heard the response of the people. We're all looking forward to that, because Parliament will resume its function. Parliament was suspended because it was only the President and his NCC that were doing the job, making decisions for us, including suspending our rights. Freedom to choose, freedom of movement and all this stuff, because they could tell you you cannot go in another province and all that stuff. There are a number of freedoms that were curtailed. But now, once it is over, we will go back to enjoy all our freedoms. That's something that we really, really appreciate. Now, when it comes to the report of the panel of experts into what happened in July, what caused that, and so on, there is much that could have been said. And the obvious things that he must have said is that besides the fact that the ANC is implicated, it is clear that the ANC, the divisions in the ANC are not helpful. They are causing problems in the country. So the ANC must sort out their mess. Okay, he as the president of the ANC must make sure that that problem is sorted out. But now, if you remember what happened, there was no intelligence at all. Okay? It happened, the riots just came upon the people like that, unexpectedly. And they fled up all over to show that the whole thing was well coordinated. It was coordinated, but the intelligence couldn't pick it up. So that is a disappointment to us, that we have intelligence that did not do its work, intelligence that is not as effective as it should be. And then you have another thing that was revealed in the report, that the Minister of Police and the Commissioner of Police are poles apart. They are not working together. Maybe because of the divisions in the ANC, the minister has his group and the Commissioner of Police also has his group. So for us to be able to win the fight against corruption, the fight against violence, looting and all these things, the police, national police and the Commissioner of Police must work together, because when those that are under them see them working together, they will do much more. But now, if they realize that the commissioner is going this side, the police, the police national minister is going this side, then they will also go on the other side and do their own thing, or choose who to follow between the two. So division is never helpful. They must be united so that together they can ensure that crime in South Africa is overcome and looting on that scale will not take place again.
Thank you very much, Reverend. A good evening to you. It's always a pleasure to give Parliament TV interviews. Thank you so much. And I'm now going to be getting a reaction from a member of the Inkatha Freedom Party, Mr. Naray Singh. If you can face more to that, there's my camera. Okay. All right. If I can, Mr. Singh, thank you very much. If you could just get your reaction from the President's address, please.
Well, it seems that I've heard the speech before. We will ensure, we need to, but where's the plan of action? I think the President was very short on a plan of action, and I know sometimes people criticize us by saying that, well, the ministers and the Minister of Finance will come up with this plan of action, but there wasn't anything that tangible that he said, except that I think it was a great admission, even for him to say on the platform, that the July unrest and the omissions and commissions were largely the responsibility of Cabinet, and Cabinet needs to take collective responsibility for that. But what we'd like to see is, what is he going to do about it? Because in those portfolios that he mentioned in the security cluster are ministers, are heads of departments, are directors general, are commissioners of police and head of intelligence. What is going to happen to them? You've got this report, and we are saying to you, Mr. President, you must act. And you must act decisively, not as a president of the ANC, but as a president of the country. And I think that is going to restore faith in the people of South Africa. People are disappointed. People are at all levels in the informal settlements are disappointed. People who can live well are disappointed about lack of safety and security, potholes on the roads, lack of infrastructure, corruption in society. So I think it's a very tough act that the president has to do, but he has to do it with all of us, and we are willing as Inkatha Freedom Party to offer support wherever the support is necessary to improve the lives of people in South Africa.
Mr. Singh, thank you very much for talking to Parliament TV. Thank you and a good evening to you. Ngoku babukeli baka Parliament TV ndimene Deputy President United Democratic Movement, Mr. Nkwakwa. Mr. Nkwakwa, thank you very much for taking this interview with Parliament. Yintoni ozileyo okanye ngaba ungathetha uthini ngengxelo kaMongameli namhlanje?
Mhlekazi ndiyabulela tata. Qala funeka kubele ezikomitini siyakukhumbula. Okwesibini into ba uMongameli wenza lathi idla ngokwenziwa ngo-African National Congress yesiqhelo yoteketa. Bavele basiphathele zonke izithembiso zabo. Ubuya simamele speech CIJ Rich. You would definitely say that bazazi ukuthi zintoni ekufuna zenziwe eMzantsi Afrika, zintoni ingxaki zindawoni. Primarily because most of these problems were created by them. But the problem is into bayizange ya-implementa nto. Yonke le nto ithetha apha ile wayithethe kulo nyaka upheleyo nakulo nyaka abalupheleyo. Jonga umzekelo kuthethwa about the need and the importance of being able to pay small businesses on time. I remember President Zuma saying that in his very first term. They spoke about Umzimvubu project. Actually, Umzimvubu project was initiated by the UDM when I was still the researcher and speechwriter, General Bandolo. So that was way back in 2010, 2011. And we're still talking about the same project in finalized. The other issue, which I think is clear from Wonke Umtindoba, Abantu, they don't have a clear plan. What I had today was a DA manifesto, a very neoliberal plan. Engayaziyo uba izabashiya phi nabantu baseMzantsi Afrika abahluphekileyo basezilokishini. Ithetha ukuthi bona funeka baphile ngee-handouts, nee-grants, nee-crumbs that fall off the tables. Without a clear plan of how do you reignite the South African economy, how you do invest in decisive, in important sectors of the economy, ezawudrive growth nakwi-sectors zabo, nakwi-communities zabo, ayikho loo nto. The other thing is, we talk about creating dedicated courts, Kulente State Capture Commission inquiry, to deal with these recommendations and other issues. I am sure yona nto bazawuyenza msinyane leyo kuba lokhu kule factional battles going to December bangasebenzisi i-arms of the state ukulwa amadaba yabo like they have done now. Nibonile na abantu babonile napha kula JSC interviews ukuthi the judiciary has been in fact affected negatively and impacted negatively by the factional battles of the ANC.
Hlekazi ndiyabulela kakhulu ngohlomla kulomba wanamhlanje inkosi kakhulu. Viewers at home, right now I will be talking to the Democratic Alliance Chief Whip in the National Assembly.
To my best friend in the whippery. Bye, my friend.
Ms. Mazon, thank you very much for taking this interview with Parliament TV once again. Your reaction from the President's address?
You know, if the President does what he says, I'm going to be the happiest person on earth. But until I see some action, I can't believe him. Arrest some people, shuffle your cabinet, fire some ministers that this whole country is going, come on, we know that this is madness, and then I will believe you. What really gets me about the President, you know, I like the President. I like him as a human being. I think he's a nice man. And he always says the same thing. He says, we can only do this together. He says it every year. And every year I think, yes, Mr. President, you're right. Tumamina, I'm coming. And I try and come, and he won't see me. We have ideas, we have solutions, we have plans, and yet he'll stand here tonight and say we need to unite, put ideology aside and come together as South Africans. He has yet to do that. So the minute he does that, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say, you gave a speech that I believe 100%. But unfortunately, everything that he said tonight, I've heard for the last 4 years. So I'm losing the ability to believe in him, because I think he cries wolf too much. Promising 500,000 jobs. Where are those 500,000 jobs going to come from? We're in stage 2 electricity failure. So tomorrow morning, entrepreneurs who have small shops are going to wake up, their produce is going to be spoiled, and they're going to close their doors, and they're going to be unemployed. He said something, though, that is very important. The President said the government should not be creating jobs, and he is absolutely right. The government's job is to create an environment that is conducive to economic growth. But the government shouldn't be the employee. The private sector should be employing people. So we need international investment, we need local investment, and that means our infrastructure and development has to rapidly increase so that international firms and local firms feel confident in giving their money and putting their money in South Africa. Money's tight all over the world after COVID. So we really have to show the world what a shining beacon of hope we can be. So let's see what the President does. He said there's going to be some arrests. He says there's going to be some changes in the safety and security cluster. Fire a minister that perhaps has been shown to be completely inept in the June riots. And that will be the first step in me believing the rest of what you said tonight. So a mixed bag of emotions coming from me, because I so badly want to believe what he says, but I've also heard the story one too many times to be fooled again.
Ma'am, thank you very much for talking to Parliament TV.
Thank you so much.
Well, viewers, those were the reactions from the members of Parliament following the 2022 State of the Nation address by President Cyril Ramaphosa. I think from my side, it is a good night, and you have been watching and listening to Thembi Nkosi Ngoma, and it's back to the studio.
Thank you very much, Thembi. Quite an interesting evening, those different perspectives and reviews of the State of the Nation address that was delivered by the State President earlier today at about 7. So what was your take on some of the things that he said?
Thank you, Sizvi. I think for me, one of the key highlights that came out quite strongly from the President's speech is prioritizing building a capable, ethical, developmental state, because that really goes to the heart of capacitating the state machinery and ensuring that the commitments, this program, this grand program of action that the president is announcing becomes implementable. And another very key component that goes together with making this possible is the president committed to finalizing a framework for professionalizing the public service, and that really is about bringing in that the ethics and the skills that is required within the public service to ensure that policy or programs, strategic programs, are, of course, implementable. And another important component that is still linked to the issue of building a capable ethical developmental state is that the president also committed that as part of this process of professionalizing the public service, that it would be important to also ensure that there are tighter measures of recruitment to ensure that the individuals who are recruited into key and strategic positions are then able, to perform those functions, those very, very critical functions, because it is the state machinery, it is the machinery itself that has to ensure that policy becomes implementable, that particularly on the ground at local government level, we have to make sure that the with the appropriate capacity, the issues or all the strategic programs that have been put in place become implementable. So for me, that really stands out, because importantly, it is important to just also recognize that while all of these strategic programs are being highlighted, but without the necessary capacity, it becomes a futile exercise. But I believe that it becomes, with government committing to ensure that state capacity is prioritized, we will see things moving in the right direction.
Viewers at home, seemingly we still have a very keen member that really wants to say something about the State of the Nation address. Coming to you, Tim Gosi. Thank you.
Thank you, Sis Valerie. Yes, I know I had said my good night, but viewers will remember that quite a number of political parties are represented at Parliament, and we are obliged to give all of them an opportunity. So right now is Mr. Heron of Good Party. Thank you for talking to us. Your reaction from the President's speech, please.
Well, I think first of all, we welcome that the President gave some feedback with some real numbers of previous promises and commitments. So the President gave feedback around his presidential job creation program, indicating the kind of numbers that have been achieved, and also in the electricity space, gave some feedback and update on previous promises to add extra generational capacity. So we welcome that. I think it's important that if you make a commitment in a previous State of the Nation address, that you provide feedback about whether it's been successful or not. Unemployment and jobs are, I think, the greatest crisis that we have in our country. It was top of mind for the President. We're happy about that. But we would have liked to have heard some targets, measurable targets about when these jobs could be created and how many could be created in that time frame. We welcome the extension of the social distress relief grant, but we would have liked to see an end to the endless debate around a basic income grant, and that the basic income grant should be finally implemented. We welcome the commitment to the prosecution of the state capture criminals, but we remain concerned that the President made no commitment to capacitating the National Prosecuting Authority to actually prosecute at that kind of scale. They'll need financial and human resources in order to do so. And finally, we've been concerned, like all South Africans, around our electricity supply instability. The President gave some great detail about future generation supply that would be added to the grid, and this is welcome, but some of that supply seems to be going to take 2 or 3 years to come on board, which means that we're going to face electricity instability for another 2 or 3 years, which will not be good for the job creation and the economic growth promises that he made.
Mr. Heron, thank you very much, and a good evening to you.
Thank you, you too.
Well, that was Mr. Heron of the Good Party, and certainly our last member to react to the President's address. I'm now going to send you back to the two ladies who are sitting in the studio.
Closing it off, we're going to look at what the President said regarding our African region. Most of us are quite aware that there's so many good products that Africa actually develops. But because of borders and some of the restrictions, we have not been able to trade with each other. So in the President's address, the President mentioned that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area will allow easier intra-Africa trade. That way it will grow the economy of the African continent. Because if you remember, Sibo, there has been this shift in the African leaders to say Africa needs to be independent economically, socially, and in all aspects of actually being independent states and developing their own citizens to be entrepreneurs, to actually stand above where we are at the current stage. So it is a positive thing into the African region to say, let us recognize what we are producing.
Absolutely.
Because it's rich products, they are quite good, but why ourselves are always full of what is from the West.
Of imports. That also speaks to the Africa Free Trade Agreement, which has been positioned by the state president as a key strategy that will enable African countries to trade with one another. And it is expected, while plans are being put in place to implement the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, all of these systems will enable Africa to trade not only regionally, but across the African continent. So that is quite key as well. But another, just in conclusion, the president also spoke about the district development model, that every effort will be employed in this current financial year, in the year ahead going into 2023, to make the district development model a fully functional model, which obviously brings the three spheres of government together in terms of planning, in terms of budgeting, and in terms of policy implementation. So that for me is actually key when it comes to this issue. So I think we can stop there for now. There is, of course, still the State of the Nation Address debate, which is coming up next week, where all of these issues will be unpacked by all the parties that are represented in Parliament, who will be given an opportunity to unpack these issues further. With that said, I would like to thank all our viewers who stayed with us since we went live on air this morning from 7 a.m. up until where we are right now. We took you through the journey with us, unpacking quite a number of critical issues, including what the President had committed to in his 2021 State of the Nation address, and also just assessing impact and assessing progress that has been made in implementing priorities to, of course, the President delivering his 2022 State of the Nation address at the Cape Town City Hall, as obviously the first time in history that this has ever taken place. But of course, we will take this conversation forward next week again as we bring you further updates and give you more content that is relevant and educational as well as what will impact the lives of ordinary South Africans. With that said, viewers at home, good night.
This book, our Constitution, protects our society and empowers us to govern. The Protea leaves are us, the people, who freely elect our voices in Parliament. The drum calls the people of Parliament, through whom we govern together. And the sun is our country, healing our past, improving our lives, and energizing our potential. Together, our Constitution, our people, our Parliament, and our country are building our great South African nation. Parliament TV, Channel 408 on DSTV.
democratic South Africa. Parliament's buildings also artifacts keep the story.
South Africa, COVID-19 is still with us. South Africa and the world continue to experience infections and deaths, with many families losing their loved ones and in some instances, their livelihoods through this pandemic. While the government has opened various sectors of the economy,